Audiobook Academy presents Why Leaders Lie by John Mearsheimer, explained. The Truth About Lying in International Politics. Introduction. Lying in International Politics. In the initial chapter of Why Leaders Lie by John Mearsheimer, the author carefully constructs the foundation for an extensive exploration of deception and falsehoods within the intricate realm of international politics. This opening chapter, far from being a mere prelude, serves as a crucial entry point into the profound investigation that unfolds within the pages of the book. Mearsheimer commences this intellectual journey by acknowledging a fundamental premise, a premise that forms the backbone of his entire inquiry: the undeniable presence of deception and untruths in the context of international politics. Within this complex and multifaceted arena, sovereign states engage in intricate and often high-stakes interactions on the global stage, employing a diverse range of tactics that extend beyond transparency and honesty. With this astute recognition, the author establishes a sturdy framework for conducting a comprehensive examination into the motivations, repercussions, and recurring patterns of deceit within this unique domain. At the heart of this introductory chapter lies the central enigma that will persistently occupy the reader's thoughts throughout the book. Mearsheimer subtly alludes to a compelling and consequential question. Why is it that leaders entrusted with the paramount responsibility of safeguarding their nation's interests occasionally resort to dishonesty when engaging with other nations? This fundamental inquiry, poised at the outset, serves as the ignition for an extensive exploration that encompasses the ethical, strategic, and practical dimensions of lying within the context of international relations. Chapter 1 serves not only as a gateway, but also as an intellectual launchpad, propelling readers into the broader investigation of the role of deception in international politics. It underlines the paradoxical nature of lying within a world where states, driven by their imperative to secure their interests, sometimes employ deception as a strategic tool. This chapter effectively sets the stage for a deeper dive into the motivations behind leaders' decisions to engage in deception and the intricate web of consequences that emanate from such actions. By posing the central question of why leaders lie, Mearsheimer not only challenges readers to contemplate the multifaceted aspects of this phenomenon, but also invites them to partake in an intellectual voyage. Chapter 1. Lying in International Politics. In the inaugural chapter of Why Leaders Lie by John Mearsheimer, the author embarks on a profound exploration of the intricate dynamics of dishonesty within the arena of international politics. This chapter not only marks the beginning of the book, but also serves as a vital foundation for the in-depth analysis that unfolds throughout its pages. Mearsheimer initiates this intellectual journey by acknowledging a fundamental reality, a reality that shapes the very landscape of international politics: the undeniable existence of deception and falsehoods. Within this complex and multifaceted arena, sovereign states engage in intricate and often high-stakes relationships on the global stage, employing a diverse array of tactics that extend beyond transparency and honesty. With this astute recognition, the author lays the groundwork for a comprehensive investigation into the motivations, consequences, and recurring patterns of deceit within this unique domain. At the heart of this introductory chapter lies a compelling and consequential question. Why do leaders who bear the profound responsibility of safeguarding their nation's interests at times resort to dishonesty when interacting with other nations? This fundamental inquiry, poised at the outset, serves as the catalyst for an exploration of the ethical, strategic, and practical dimensions of lying within the realm of international relations. Chapter 1, far from being a mere introduction, functions as a gateway to the broader exploration of the role of deception in international politics. Mearsheimer astutely acknowledges the paradoxical nature of lying in a world where states, driven by their imperative to secure their interests, sometimes employ deception as a strategic tool. This chapter effectively sets the stage for a deeper dive into the motivations behind leaders' decisions to engage in deception and the intricate web of consequences that emanate from such actions. By posing the central question of why leaders lie, Mearsheimer not only challenges readers to contemplate the multifaceted aspects of this phenomenon, but also invites them to partake in an intellectual voyage. In essence, this inaugural chapter serves as an intellectual springboard, beckoning readers to join the author in dissecting the complexities of deception in international politics. It introduces the book's overarching theme and lays the groundwork for the subsequent exploration of real-world case studies, ethical dilemmas, and strategic considerations related to lying by political leaders on the global stage. As an illustrative example, consider the historical narrative of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. During this harrowing confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union, both superpowers resorted to various forms of deception to protect their interests and navigate the treacherous waters of international politics. The U.S. government initially denied any knowledge of the presence of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba, while the Soviet Union continued to deny their existence even as evidence mounted. This crisis exemplifies the intricate interplay of morality, power dynamics, and statecraft inherent in the decisions of leaders when truth and deception are simultaneously at play on the global stage. Chapter 2. The Inventory of International Lies. In the second chapter of Why Leaders Lie by John Mearsheimer, the author embarks on a systematic and illuminating journey, unraveling the diverse forms of deception that permeate the intricate realm of international politics. This chapter is far from being a mere exploration. It is a comprehensive examination of the inventory of lies that are prevalent in international relations, shedding a revealing light on the nuanced tactics employed by leaders and states in their interactions on the global stage. Mearsheimer commences this chapter by recognizing a fundamental truth, a truth that underscores the complexity of deception in international politics. He acknowledges that lying is not a one-size-fits all phenomenon and introduces readers to three distinct forms of deception: denial, deception, and dissimulation. Number 1. Denial. Denial involves leaders or states flatly rejecting accusations or charges made against them, even if those allegations contain an element of truth. This form of deception can be a strategic maneuver to deflect blame, protect one's image, or maintain a facade of innocence. An example of denial can be found in the responses of governments accused of human rights violations, where they often vehemently deny any wrongdoing. Number 2. Deception. As Mearsheimer describes it, is the deliberate act of conveying false information with the intent of creating a specific perception or influencing the actions of other states. This tactic is often employed to shape narratives, gain an advantage in negotiations, or achieve geopolitical objectives. The manipulation of intelligence and misinformation campaigns can serve as illustrative examples of deception in international politics. Number 3. Dissimulation. Dissimulation represents a subtler form of deception, where leaders omit certain information or manipulate the presentation of facts to shape perceptions without outright lying. This form of deceit allows leaders to maintain a degree of plausible deniability while still advancing their interests. In the context of trade negotiations, for instance, dissimulation might involve selectively disclosing economic data to influence the negotiating position of other nations. Chapter 2 serves as an indispensable foundation for comprehending the intricacies of lying in international politics. By categorizing and dissecting these forms of deception, Mearsheimer equips readers with a robust framework for analyzing the multitude of instances where leaders resort to dishonesty to advance their nation's interests, navigate diplomatic challenges, or manage crises. This chapter, with its taxonomy of lies, lays the groundwork for a deeper exploration of real-world case studies and examples in subsequent chapters. It underscores the notion that deception is a multifaceted tool in international politics, requiring leaders to carefully weigh their options and select the form of dishonesty that best serves their objectives. It prompts readers to contemplate the strategic calculus that underlies the complex decisions of leaders as they navigate the treacherous waters of international relations. As an illustrative example, consider the historical narrative of the Iran-Contra affair in the 1980s. In this complex and clandestine operation, U.S. officials engaged in a combination of denial, deception, and dissimulation to covertly sell arms to Iran and funnel the proceeds to Contra rebels in Nicaragua. The Reagan administration denied any direct involvement, employed deception by secretly selling arms to Iran, and employed dissimulation by manipulating the flow of information to Congress and the public. This intricate web of deception underscores the multifaceted nature of lying in international politics, where leaders strategically choose from a repertoire of dishonest tactics to achieve their objectives. Chapter 3. Lying Between States. In the third chapter of Why Leaders Lie by John J. Mearsheimer, the author embarks on a deeper exploration of the intricate web of deception within the realm of international politics, with a specific focus on the dynamics of lying between sovereign states. This chapter serves as a critical juncture in the book, delving further into the motivations, methods, and consequences of lying in the interactions among nations. Mearsheimer begins by underscoring the central role of national interest in shaping the behavior of nations on the international stage. Leaders are driven by an unwavering imperative to safeguard and advance their country's interests. It is this compelling imperative that sometimes leads them to employ deception as a strategic tool. The chapter systematically dissects the reasons why states engage in lying, highlighting three primary drivers: the pursuit of security, diplomatic advantage, and power. A central feature of the chapter is the examination of historical case studies where states have resorted to deception as a means of advancing their interests. These real-world examples provide valuable insights into the practical application of lying in international relations. Mearsheimer discusses instances such as the Cuban Missile Crisis, a pivotal moment in history where deception played a decisive role in shaping the outcome of a global standoff. Furthermore, the chapter ventures into the ethical dimension of state-sponsored deception. Mearsheimer astutely recognizes that the international system lacks a centralized authority to enforce moral principles, making deception a pragmatic option for states seeking to achieve their objectives. However, the author raises crucial questions about the potential moral hazards associated with lying on the global stage, prompting readers to reflect on the complex interplay between ethics and practicality in international relations. Chapter 3 takes readers deeper into the complexities of deception in international politics, unraveling the multifaceted motivations behind state-sponsored lying. It underscores the paramount importance of national interest in guiding the actions and decisions of states. Leaders, as the stewards of their nations, are compelled to consider the strategic utility of deception as they navigate the treacherous waters of global politics. The inclusion of historical case studies adds a layer of depth and relevance to the chapter. These examples serve as practical illustrations of the concepts discussed, allowing readers to grasp the real-world implications of state-sponsored lying. They provide a window into the strategic calculus of leaders who must weigh the benefits and risks of deception in high-stakes diplomatic and security contexts. Moreover, the ethical dimension introduced in this chapter raises significant and thought provoking questions about the moral boundaries within the international system. The absence of a centralized authority to enforce moral standards underscores the complex and often morally ambiguous nature of international relations. Readers are challenged to navigate the gray areas where pragmatism and morality intersect. In essence, Chapter 3 equips readers with a comprehensive understanding of why states lie to one another, the strategic considerations that drive such actions, and the ethical dilemmas that arise in this complex landscape. It prepares readers to delve further into the nuanced world of international deception in the subsequent chapters, armed with a deeper appreciation of the motivations and implications of state-sponsored lying. Chapter 4. Fear-Mongering. In the fourth chapter of Why Leaders Lie by John Mearsheimer, the author directs his focus toward a specific and potent tactic of deception in international politics. Fear-mongering involves the calculated exaggeration of threats or dangers with the aim of instilling fear in a population or justifying specific actions, often including military interventions. Mearsheimer commences this chapter by providing a lucid exposition of the concept of fear-mongering and its pivotal role in international relations. He illuminates how leaders may strategically exploit fear to mobilize public support for policies they deem crucial. This often involves portraying a looming threat as more immediate and perilous than it may actually be, thus swaying public sentiment and galvanizing action. The chapter proceeds to present a series of historical case studies where fear-mongering played a pivotal and sometimes controversial role. These examples include instances such as the United States' response to the perceived Soviet missile gap during the height of the Cold War, and the Bush administration's efforts to justify the invasion of Iraq by suggesting the presence of weapons of mass destruction. These real-world examples serve as powerful illustrations of the strategic utility of fear-mongering in international politics and its capacity to shape policy decisions. Mearsheimer also engages with the ethical dimensions of fear-mongering, probing the moral implications of leaders deliberately stoking fear for political ends. While leaders may argue that they are acting in their nation's best interests, the chapter raises questions about the potential catastrophic consequences of fear-mongering and its corrosive effect on public trust. Chapter 4 provides readers with a nuanced exploration of a specific form of deception, fear-mongering, within the broader landscape of international politics. It underscores the tactical use of fear as a powerful motivator for shaping public opinion and influencing policy decisions, particularly in the context of international relations. The historical case studies featured in the chapter demonstrate how fear-mongering has been wielded by leaders to garner support for a range of actions, including military interventions. These examples underscore the potent impact of fear on national policies and the public psyche, shedding light on how leaders have harnessed fear to advance their agendas. The ethical considerations raised by Mearsheimer add depth and complexity to the discussion. They compel readers to grapple with the moral dilemmas inherent in fear-mongering, recognizing that while leaders may justify their actions as being in their nation's best interests, the manipulation of fear can exact a high toll in terms of lives lost and trust eroded. In essence, Chapter 4 provides readers with an in-depth understanding of fear-mongering as a deceptive tactic in international relations. It explores its historical use, its strategic implications, and the ethical questions it raises, offering a comprehensive view of this specific facet of deception in international politics. As an illustrative example, consider the events leading up to the United States' involvement in the Vietnam War. During the early 1960s, U.S. leaders, including President Lyndon B. Johnson, used fear-mongering to exaggerate the threat of communism in Southeast Asia. The domino theory was invoked, suggesting that the fall of one country to communism would trigger a chain reaction of communist takeovers in neighboring nations. This portrayal of a dire and imminent threat was used to justify escalating U.S. involvement in Vietnam. The subsequent war had profound consequences, both in terms of human lives and public trust in government statements, raising significant ethical questions about the use of fear-mongering as a tool of deception in international politics. Chapter 5. Strategic Cover-Ups. In the 5th chapter of Why Leaders Lie by John Mearsheimer, the author delves into the intricacies of strategic cover-ups within the context of international politics. This chapter examines how leaders and states strategically conceal information or manipulate facts to protect their interests, maintain public support, or manage crises, shedding light on a critical aspect of deception in the international arena. Mearsheimer initiates the discussion by offering a clear and insightful elucidation of the concept of strategic cover-ups and their profound significance within the broader framework of international deception. He emphasizes that cover-ups extend beyond the mere act of concealing past actions. They often encompass the manipulation of information and narratives to shape perceptions and outcomes, serving as a powerful tool in the arsenal of statecraft. The chapter proceeds to provide readers with a series of compelling historical case studies that vividly illustrate the use of strategic cover-ups in international relations. These examples traverse a range of scenarios, including the Watergate scandal in the United States, where the Nixon administration attempted to conceal its involvement in illegal activities, and the Downing Street memo related to the Iraq War, which raised troubling questions about the manipulation of intelligence to justify military action. Mearsheimer adeptly navigates the ethical considerations intertwined with strategic cover-ups, probing the moral dilemmas faced by leaders who resort to these tactics. He acknowledges that while leaders may argue that they are acting in the best interests of their nations, cover-ups can have far-reaching consequences, including undermining transparency, accountability, and the public's trust. Chapter 5 meticulously examines the strategy of cover-ups as a distinctive form of deception within international politics. It underscores how leaders and states strategically wield the power of information and narrative manipulation to achieve specific objectives, safeguard their interests, or navigate critical situations. The historical case studies presented in the chapter serve as concrete and illustrative examples of strategic cover-ups in action. These case studies reveal how cover-ups can manifest in various forms, from attempts to conceal past actions to efforts aimed at shaping perceptions and influencing public discourse. They provide readers with valuable insights into the intricate and multifaceted nature of cover-up strategies and their profound implications. Moreover, the ethical dimension explored by Mearsheimer adds layers of complexity to the examination of cover-ups. The author raises vital and thought-provoking questions about the moral ramifications of leaders resorting to cover-ups, including their potential to erode transparency, accountability, and public trust, a crucial consideration in the realm of international politics. In summary, Chapter 5 equips readers with a comprehensive and nuanced understanding of strategic cover-ups in international relations. It delves into their historical use, strategic implications, and ethical considerations, offering a comprehensive view of this specific facet of deception within the complex landscape of international politics. As an illustrative example, consider the Watergate scandal in the United States during the early 1970s. In an attempt to cover up their involvement in illegal activities, including the break, and at the Democratic National Committee headquarters, senior members of the Nixon administration engaged in a systematic effort to conceal evidence, obstruct investigations, and manipulate public perception. This case exemplifies how strategic cover-ups can extend beyond mere concealment to involve a web of deceptive tactics aimed at preserving political power and public trust, ultimately resulting in profound ethical and political consequences. Chapter 6. Nationalist Myths. In the 6th chapter of Why Leaders Lie by John Mearsheimer, the author ventures into the intricate and powerful realm of nationalist myths as a form of deception in international politics. This chapter unfolds the ways in which leaders craft narratives and myths, often rooted in nationalism, to mold public perceptions, forge national identity, and advance their political agendas. Mearsheimer initiates this chapter by providing a clear and insightful elucidation of the concept of nationalist myths and their profound significance within the realm of international relations. He underscores that these myths often encompass the construction of heroic narratives, the demonization of adversaries, or the promotion of national exceptionalism. Leaders strategically deploy these myths to bolster national pride, unify populations, and legitimize their actions on the global stage. The chapter proceeds to offer readers a range of compelling historical case studies that vividly illustrate the strategic use of nationalist myths in international politics. These examples span critical scenarios, including the propaganda campaigns of Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler, which relentlessly propagated the myth of Aryan supremacy, and the Cold War era, where both the United States and the Soviet Union employed contrasting nationalist narratives to galvanize support for their respective causes. Mearsheimer thoughtfully delves into the ethical dimensions entwined with nationalist myths, challenging readers to contemplate the morality of leaders who manipulate historical narratives and foster nationalist sentiments. While leaders may argue that these myths serve their nation's interests, they can also sow the seeds of conflict, promote historical revisionism, and distort reality, a theme that resonates throughout the chapter. Chapter 6 offers an enlightening exploration of the utilization of nationalist myths as a strategic instrument of deception within international politics. It sheds light on how leaders craft narratives that tap into the deep wellsprings of national pride, historical narratives, and identity to influence public opinion, foster unity, and legitimize their actions. The historical case studies featured in the chapter vividly illustrate the strategic deployment of nationalist myths, from Hitler's relentless promotion of Aryan supremacy to the contrasting narratives of the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. These examples underscore the power of myths to shape perceptions and advance political objectives. Moreover, the ethical considerations posed by Mearsheimer are central to the chapter's narrative. The author skillfully challenges readers to confront the moral implications of leaders who manipulate historical narratives and stoke nationalist sentiments. This ethical inquiry adds depth and complexity to the examination of deception in international politics, underscoring the potential consequences of myth making. As an illustrative example, consider the case of Nazi Germany during World War II. Adolf Hitler and his regime crafted an elaborate nationalist myth centered on the notion of Aryan racial superiority. This myth was used not only to justify their expansionist agenda, but also to dehumanize and target specific groups, ultimately leading to the Holocaust. The manipulation of nationalist myths in this context demonstrates the profound impact they can have on a global scale, emphasizing the ethical imperative of critically examining the narratives constructed by leaders for political purposes. Chapter 7 Liberal Lies. In the 7th chapter of Why Leaders Lie by John Mearsheimer, the author explores a distinctive facet of deception in international politics known as liberal lies. This chapter delves into how leaders, often in liberal democracies, may resort to deception while pursuing policies they believe are morally justified, adding a layer of complexity to the landscape of international deception. Mearsheimer opens the chapter by providing a clear and insightful definition of liberal lies and their relevance within the context of international relations. He emphasizes that liberal lies typically revolve around leaders misleading their own populations or other nations about their intentions or actions, all while claiming to uphold moral principles or the moral high ground. The chapter proceeds to offer readers a series of illuminating historical case studies that vividly illustrate the use of liberal lies. These examples span critical scenarios, including the Kosovo conflict in the late 1990s, where Western leaders justified military intervention under the guise of humanitarianism, and the deceptive narrative surrounding the Arab Spring, where leaders sought to shape public perception in their favor. Ethical considerations loom large in the chapter's exploration, as Mearsheimer grapples with the moral dilemmas associated with liberal lies. He astutely acknowledges the complexity of leaders who employ deception while framing their actions within a moral context, raising profound questions about the potential erosion of trust, transparency, and international norms. Chapter 7 offers a penetrating examination of the phenomenon of liberal lies in international politics. It unravels the intricacies of how leaders in liberal democracies may engage in deception while framing their actions within a moral context, often invoking humanitarian or democratic principles to justify their behavior. The historical case studies featured in the chapter serve as tangible examples of liberal lies in action. From the Kosovo conflict to the Arab Spring, these instances illustrate how leaders may strategically employ deception to garner domestic and international support while framing their actions as morally justified. Moreover, the ethical dimensions explored by Mearsheimer add depth and richness to the chapter's analysis. The author adeptly navigates the tension between deception and moral claims, highlighting the significant ethical questions surrounding the impact of liberal lies on transparency, accountability, and international norms. This exploration underscores the intricate interplay between moral justifications and the use of deception in the complex realm of international relations. As an illustrative example, consider the NATO intervention in Kosovo in 1999. Western leaders, including U.S. President Bill Clinton, portrayed the military campaign as a humanitarian mission aimed at protecting innocent civilians from Serbian aggression. While the stated moral justification was to prevent further bloodshed and atrocities, critics argued that there were underlying political motives at play. This case illustrates the complexity of liberal lies, where leaders may employ deception while invoking moral principles to gain public and international support for their actions, leading to debates about the sincerity of their stated justifications and the potential consequences of such deception on global politics and ethics. Chapter 8. The Downside of Telling International Lies. In the 8th chapter of Why Leaders Lie, by John Mearsheimer, the author scrutinizes the potential consequences and downsides of engaging in international lies. This chapter delves into the risks and challenges that leaders and states may encounter when resorting to deception in the complex and high-stakes arena of global politics. Mearsheimer commences the chapter by underscoring a fundamental point. While international lies may serve as a useful tool in certain circumstances, they are not without significant drawbacks. The chapter proceeds to explore several potential downsides, shedding light on the adverse effects that deception can have on international relations. To illustrate these points, the chapter presents a series of persuasive historical case studies where international lies led to detrimental outcomes. These examples encompass critical scenarios, including the Cuban Missile Crisis, where mutual mistrust between the United States and the Soviet Union nearly precipitated nuclear conflict, and the false intelligence claims about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction, which severely damaged the credibility of the United States on the global stage. Mearsheimer astutely addresses the ethical dimensions of international lies, emphasizing that leaders must carefully weigh the potential costs and benefits of deception. He astutely acknowledges the moral dilemmas tied to deception in international relations, and underscores the paramount importance of ethical considerations in the decision-making process. Chapter 8 serves as a cogent examination of the potential downsides and consequences associated with international lies. It underscores the fact that, while deception may offer short-term advantages, it can also carry long-term costs that significantly impact trust, credibility, and international relationships. The historical case studies featured in the chapter serve as tangible examples of the adverse outcomes that can result from international lies. From the harrowing brinkmanship of the Cuban Missile Crisis to the credibility crisis that emanated from false intelligence about Iraq's weapons, these instances highlight the inherent risks and challenges associated with deception. Ethical considerations occupy a central role in the chapter's analysis, emphasizing the critical importance of leaders grappling with the moral dilemmas tied to international lies. The chapter compellingly underscores the need for ethical decision-making and the imperative for leaders to meticulously assess the potential costs and benefits of deception in the intricate landscape of international politics. As an illustrative example, consider the case of the false intelligence claims about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction in the early 2000s. The United States' use of deceptive information to justify the invasion of Iraq not only led to a protracted and costly conflict, but also eroded trust in U.S. leadership and intelligence agencies. This case exemplifies the far-reaching consequences of international lies, including the damage to a nation's reputation and the strains they can place on diplomatic relations, underlining the significance of ethical considerations in international decision-making. Chapter 9. Conclusion. In the concluding chapter of Why Leaders Lie by John Mearsheimer, the author synthesizes the key insights and findings from the preceding chapters, offering a comprehensive overview of the book's central arguments and contributions to the understanding of deception in international politics. Mearsheimer initiates the chapter by revisiting the central question that underpinned the entire book. Why do leaders lie in the realm of international relations? He reflects on the multifaceted nature of deception, underscoring that leaders employ various forms of lies, ranging from fear-mongering to cover-ups and nationalist myths. These deceptions are often driven by strategic considerations and, at times, moral justifications. The chapter encapsulates the book's primary arguments, including the notable observation that leaders tend to lie more to their own populations than to other countries. Mearsheimer emphasizes the paramount importance of national interest in shaping international behavior, highlighting that leaders are compelled to prioritize the survival and advancement of their nations. Furthermore, the author underscores the ethical dilemmas that are inherent in deception within the realm of international politics. He acknowledges that leaders often justify their lies by citing national interests. Yet these actions can have far-reaching consequences on transparency, accountability, and trust. The concluding chapter serves as a vital synthesis of the book's central themes and findings. It reaffirms that leaders resort to deception in international politics due to a combination of strategic calculations and moral justifications, shedding light on the complexities of lying in this unique context. Mearsheimer's reflection on the tendency of leaders to lie more to their own populations than to other nations underscores the intricate relationship between leaders and their domestic constituencies. It emphasizes the notion that leaders must navigate the delicate balance between fulfilling their obligations to their citizens and advancing their nation's interests on the global stage. The ethical dimensions addressed in the conclusion highlight the moral dilemmas leaders face when employing deception in international relations. The chapter underscores the enduring importance of ethical considerations in decision-making. Even within the pragmatic realm of international politics, underlining the profound impact that deception can have on global trust and relationships. As a narrative example, consider the conclusion's reflection on the Iraq War, where false intelligence about weapons of mass destruction was used to justify military intervention. Mearsheimer's analysis in the conclusion could point out the moral dilemma faced by leaders who may have believed they were acting in their nation's best interest by removing a perceived threat. Yet the deception involved in presenting false evidence had far-reaching consequences leading to significant ethical and geopolitical ramifications. This example highlights the intricate interplay between strategic calculations, moral considerations, and the consequences of deception in international politics. Key points of the book. Key points number 1. Leaders employ various forms of lies in international politics, including fear-mongering, cover-ups, and nationalist myths. Leaders in international politics use a range of deceptive tactics to achieve their goals. For instance, they might exaggerate threats. Fear-mongering, to justify military actions, conceal information, cover-ups, to maintain public support, or create nationalistic narratives, nationalist myths, to unite their populations. Key points number 2. Deception is driven by strategic considerations, often aimed at protecting national interests or gaining an advantage. Leaders employ deception as a strategic tool. For example, a country might downplay its military capabilities to lull potential adversaries into complacency, ultimately gaining an advantage in negotiations or conflicts. Key points number 3. Leaders tend to lie more to their own populations than to other countries. Leaders often find it necessary to manipulate or deceive their domestic constituencies to maintain political support. For instance, during a crisis, a leader might downplay the severity of the situation to prevent panic among the population. Key points number 4. National interest plays a central role in shaping international behavior. National interest, such as the security and prosperity of a nation, is the primary driver of a country's actions in the international arena. Leaders prioritize these interests when making decisions, even if it involves deception. Key points number 5. Deception can have significant ethical implications, including the erosion of trust and transparency. Deception in international politics raises ethical dilemmas. For instance, a leader may justify deceptive actions by arguing that they are acting in the best interest of their country, but these actions can undermine trust in leadership and damage international relationships. Key points number 6. Historical case studies illustrate the strategic use of lies in international relations. Examining historical cases can provide valuable insights into the strategic use of lies. For instance, the Cuban Missile Crisis illustrates how both the United States and the Soviet Union used deception and secrecy to manage the crisis. Key points number 7. Fear-mongering can be employed to exaggerate threats and justify policies. Leaders sometimes exaggerate threats to gain support for their policies. For example, the exaggerated claims about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction were used to justify the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003. Key points number 8. Strategic cover-ups involve the manipulation of information and narratives. Cover-ups involve concealing information or manipulating narratives to protect interests. Watergate is a classic example where the Nixon administration attempted to cover up its involvement in illegal activities. Key points number 9. Nationalist myths are used to shape national identity and gain support. Nationalist myths involve constructing narratives that promote national pride and unity. Nazi Germany's propagation of the Aryan supremacy myth is a notorious example of using nationalist myths to shape identity and gain domestic support. Key points number 10. Liberal lies involve deception while claiming moral justifications. Leaders in liberal democracies may engage in deception while framing their actions within a moral context. For instance, Western leaders justified military intervention in Kosovo in the late 1990s under the guise of humanitarianism. In summary, Why Leaders Lie explores the multifaceted world of deception in international politics emphasizing the strategic, ethical, and national interest-driven dimensions of lying on the global stage. Historical examples help illustrate the complexities and consequences of these deceptive practices, ultimately shedding light on the intricate nature of international relations.
Thank you so much for watching at Audiobook Academy. I hope you found this video enjoyable and informative. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more amazing content just like this.